Welcome back to our live coverage of the Mackinac Policy Conference. I'm Christy McDonald. We're so glad that you're joining us here for day 2 of the conference from right here in the parlor of the Grand Hotel. Joining me now is someone that everyone, it seems like, wants to talk to. It's Trevor Pawl. He is the Chief Mobility Officer from the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification for the state of Michigan, because everyone is looking at EVs, battery technology, and wanting Michigan to be in the forefront.
The future is now,
The
Christy.
future is now, and it's happening, and they're all like, Trevor, this is what you ought to do. Are you getting a lot of unsolicited advice about what's happening next?
Yes, but also I'm getting people that want to talk to me about, that project you did 6 months ago, the dedicated autonomous vehicle lane between Detroit and Ann Arbor, or what you're doing with the future of parking in Detroit. And then when you layer on big announcements like the Ford investment today.
That's right.
I mean, this mobility ecosystem is humming on like all cylinders.
All right, so let's back up. You have been in this position for about 2 years now.
Yes.
Talk to us about daily how it has grown, what you are focusing on in your office.
Yeah, really there's 2 things that we focus on. First of all, so my position is the first of any like state. There's never been a chief mobility officer for a state. So we're writing the playbook as we go, but really we focus on policy development, so creating regulatory rights of way for the future of transportation, autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, transit, and then also public-private partnerships. So working with industry to understand, okay, how can we grow our industry, but also create community vitality? Because those 2 things can't be separate. You need both of those things to create places we want to be.
And it's interesting because we see things that have all of a sudden accelerated rapidly. When you hear Jim Farley from Ford talk about how the landscape is going to be so dramatically different in the next 3 years, and Mary Barra, and how they've accelerated their timelines for electric vehicles on the road, and the infrastructure has got to catch up. And I think sometimes in Michigan, we get down on what our infrastructure. We talk about the roads.
Right.
We talk about we need to be on the forefront of things. What are the challenges of trying to stay ahead of an industry that is creating itself as you go along?
Sure. So first of all, we've been doing this since the early 20th century, like 3-color traffic signals, paved roads, lane markings. That was Michigan. And so now we're in this really critical window, this 10 to 40 year window where infrastructure is going to change around the vehicle again. So if you want to be a global mobility leader, you can't just focus on the vehicle. You have to focus on the world around it. And so, as we think about all the infrastructure plan dollars, from DC that are coming down, making sure that we responsibly, build a map of charging stations around the state. So when GM's fleet entirely flips to electric, there's no range anxiety. You can feel, you can drive to the edge of the UP or down the block, and your routines aren't going to have to change. And that's incumbent upon government. The other thing that government really needs to focus on is equitable rollout of these new technologies. So, whether you're in a rural area or downtown Flint or downtown Battle Creek or downtown Detroit, you feel like you're part of the revolution. You feel the future is coming at you. And that's really, what I think about every day.
Yeah, and it's connectivity. I mean, we still talk about internet connectivity for people. So in broadband. So if you're looking at vehicles now, what are some of the things that monetarily, when you talk about the infusion of money that we are going to be getting from the federal government when it looks at like putting things in places and charging stations, what are some of the other things? I mean, you talk about the lane from Ann Arbor to Detroit. So what are some of the other things we should be taking into consideration?
Yeah, so first of all, if you want to revolutionize transit, you have to realize that many people in Detroit don't have smartphones. So if you are going to focus on software platforms, you need to focus on software platforms that don't create barriers. And so as we think about the future of automated payment, that's a big deal. As we think about supply chains, regionalizing, but also all the bottlenecks we're seeing right now, how can the Detroit border with Ontario create an advantage for any company that has a truck that passes through it? You think about electric vehicles. They require less parts, which means natural displacement. So how do we leverage our automotive advantage to influence other modes of transportation, whether that's in the air, rail, maritime? And so, it all has to work together as a system. Like, you can't just simply claim you're the best at electric vehicles or AVs and you be the leader. Like, you really need to focus on air, land, space, and sea, moving of people and goods, and making sure as you're doing that, you're improving safety, and also just creating a place people want to live. So I could talk for hours about this stuff.
I was going to say, Trevor, go on, but let me ask you this. So we talk about everything that Michigan is doing right now, and it makes me think, all right, but if I'm going on a road trip, how is Michigan going to compare with what Ohio is doing, with what Indiana is doing, with what Illinois is doing, and around the country? So who else do you look at? I know that your office is the first of its kind, but what else are you comparing yourself to in terms of where other places are at?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you teed me up. So just a few months ago, on this porch, Governor Whitmer announced the Lake Michigan circuit. We're reinventing the American road trip, creating a signature EV route along Lake Michigan. So while we look to other states, we also try to do first, like that route. When I look around the country and I think about tech talent, I look at Austin, Boston, Silicon Valley, and I say, what are they doing to create the systems people want to be a part of? And at the heart of that is you want to create a place that's solving the world's problems. That's writing the playbook of the future, whether it's the road of the future, like we mentioned, that autonomous vehicle lane, or we're even doing a road that charges a vehicle as it's in motion in Detroit.
Yeah, where are we in that?
We're there.
They're there.
Yeah, we're working with Electron, and it should be, we should begin to see it next year. So there are these different things that, you can't do anywhere else. You come to Detroit, you come to Michigan, you can do. If I'm a company, I want to go show my technology to the world. I want to talk to the community and help community members. That's what we give these companies an opportunity to do. As it relates to what other states are doing, we have a 5-state MOU with Minnesota, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois. So it's competition, but it's also like, look, if we're going to truly be the global leader, if America's going to be the global leader, we all have to work together. So we start with collaboration versus competition.
And also as placemaking too, and you talked about, Michigan's got to be a place where companies want to come and where people want to be. And being on the forefront of that technology is definitely one of those could be wins for Michigan. Because when we sit there and we say, look, we're losing population. We need to be a place, whether it's starting with education or whether it's starting with, neighborhoods that people want to be at. But being part on this next wave of technology is definitely very important.
Oh, 100%. With the big Ford announcement today, $3.2 billion, over 3,000 jobs. We're securing like UAW, local jobs, but we also have to have a multifaceted approach. And so you may have seen a few months ago the Michigan Central Partnership, where the state, city, Ford, Google came together. We rallied $126 million in resources to activate this district to bring 5,000 workers downtown, not just to work, but to live, to try new technologies, and have it not just be a bubble. So one of the cool things about this is a transportation innovation zone, where similar to how like the Nielsen rating systems work in TV, like we're going to work with these neighborhoods to allow them to see and try this technology first before it gets rolled out to the rest of the world.
And they can tell us what they think about it.
Does not work? So, to me, like high-tech talent, good workforce transition news and strategies like what you saw with the Ford announcement today, and then also infrastructure. Infrastructure is currency. And so it's a really exciting time with all these federal dollars to sort of reinvent the landscape. And again, it's a system-based approach. That's what we're trying to do.
And keep that talent here. We have so much talent at the universities here in the state of Michigan.
You're here, I'm here.
Sure,
like,
exactly. Let's keep them here.
Be.
That's exactly right. Trevor, just as in the short time that we have left, tell me what you think about at night. Like, what's the next thing, on your mind that you're like, oh gosh, I gotta get on top of that, or I want to take a look at that.
High-tech talent.
Yeah.
High-tech talent. Making sure that we can be globally competitive. Making sure that we responsibly spend the federal money that we've been given through the infrastructure plan, but also still the money that remains with CARES and ARP, and also holding the banner for all those other modes of mobility that we need to lead on still. There's a big drone conversation happening out there. There's a big trucking and rail conversation. Yeah. And so making sure that as we're focusing on electric vehicles, it's a balanced portfolio. And that's it. That's what I do. And my 2-year-old. I think about my 2-year-old.
That's what you think all the time.
Yeah.
Like, and boy or girl?
Boy.
See, and what
Mac,
the world...
he was named after Mack Avenue.
See, there you go. And what Mac's life is going to be like 20 years from now. It's going to be a different ballgame.
Exactly.
All right, Trevor Pawl, I'm going to keep watching what you're doing, and we can't wait to see what's next. Thanks for joining me so much here at the desk.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and coming up in a short while, Governor Gretchen Whitmer will be giving her keynote address right here at the Mackinac Policy Conference. Stay with us.